Our next deck comes from the world of Dual Terminal. Dual Terminals were arcade machines that allowed you to play a variety of minigames and duels using either pre-made decks or cards of your own if they originated from the Dual Terminals. Dual Terminals introduced new cards and created lore around specific archetypes. After completing a game, the Dual Terminal would give you a prize card, some reprints of already existing cards, and other Dual Terminal exclusive cards such as Trishula. Many decks were released in this format, including Genix, Ice Barrier, and this week's subject, Dragoonity. Dragoonity monsters are a series of winged beasts and dragons who revolve around equipping each other from the grave. The equipped dragons then have a variety of effects, but most notable and the focus of our deck is Phalanx, who can special summon itself and set up synchro plays. The build we'll be focusing on today is based on the Dragon Turbo deck from the Edison format. This deck uses a draw engine consisting of Blue Eyes cards and the spell cards Trade In and Cards of Consonance to both speed through the deck and set up our grave for Red Eyes Darkness Metal to OTK. Because of the large dragon count, the deck takes advantage of one of the most powerful spells in the game, Pre-Errata Future Fusion. Instantly dumping White Stones and Dragoonities into the grave is already massive plus, and if unchecked, it gives you a free 5k beater in 5-head dragon. In Tengu format, the deck gains access to Tour Guide and Leviair to help us recycle our resources. The deck's primary win condition is to speed through the deck and set up OTKs with Darkness Metal and our powerful dragons, including our draw fodder Blue Eyes and our synchros like Scrap Dragon and Stardust. To help survive longer games, the deck takes advantage of Prime Material and Kwakimiru to limit our opponent's options. Starting things off, we have our Dragoonity lineup. 2 copies of Ducks and 2 copies of Phalanx. While we want to see these cards often, they do nothing without an established grave or board. Due to the nature of the deck, we're likely going to draw into them or use Ducks as fodder for Continents. And of course we run 3 copies of Ravine and Terraforming, so the lower count is fine. You could also main deck Legionnaire, but I find it works better on the side and doesn't do much for us going first. Next up, we have a set of Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragons. Not only does this set up our OTKs, but it's a combo extender, and with the deck full of dragons, it's almost always live. Next up is our Blue Eyes lineup consisting of 3 copies of Whitestone and 3 copies of Blue Eyes itself. The Whitestone serves as both discard fodder for Continents and as level 1 tuner. Sending Whitestone to grave off Synchro Summon, Continents, Ravine, or Future Fusion grabs his Blue Eyes White Dragon to decked in and uses discard fodder for trade-ins. In addition to being discard fodder, Blue Eyes serves as a 3k body for our Darkness Metal OTKs. Next up is Prime Material Dragon, a main deck answer to cards like Dark Hole and Reggae Break, and a card that can check Stardust Dragon. Kwakimiru is a floodgate that stops problematic light and dark monsters like BLS, Sorcerer, and Gores from hitting the field. Our last 4 monsters are 3 copies of Tour Guide and our lone Sandgan to bring out Leviair in order to recycle our banished dragons. Onto our spells, we start off with one of the most broken cards in the game, the already mentioned Pre-Errata Future Fusion. This fills the grave with dragons, letting us dump White Stones to add our Blue Eyes, or to set up our Dragoonity plays by dumping Phalanx. And if it goes unchecked, we end up with a free 5k beater. Next up, we have 4 copies of Dragon Ravine to set up our graves and search for our Dragoonity monsters. We do have some extra flex spots, so you can always add a Malefic Stardust alongside them if you want that extra main deck monster. Following that, we have our draw power, 3 copies of Trade-In, Cards of Continents, and Super Rejuvenation, and 2 copies of Upstart Goblin. Trade-Ins to make use of the Blue Eyes, whether we brick on it or grab it off Whitestone. Continents to make use of our White Stones, or to set up our Phalanx plays. Super Rejuvenation being a way to take advantage of all the discarding we do, and Upstart functioning as both a way to shrink our deck or a flex spot. Next up is DDR to recycle the monsters we banish off our Red Eyes, Instant Fusion for our generic Darkfire, and then rounding out our deck are 3 staples in Monster Reborn, Foolish Burial, and Pot of Avarice. Onto our extra deck, we start off with 5-headed Dragon. While this card makes Future Fusion live, we run it less for the idea of a 5k beater and more for the ability to abuse Future Fusion and fill our grave. Next up is Darkfire Dragon to both set up our Red Eyes and to act as synchro fodder. You can run Alligator Sword Dragon alongside it, but for space reasons we're going with just the Darkfire. Onto our lone Xyz monsters, Leviair to recycle our banished monsters. There is a flex spot at the end, however, so you can choose to run a second Leviair or Leviathan alongside it. Leviathan, of course, is a dragon, giving it extra synergy with the deck. Onto the synchros, our lone level 5 Incatastor, our 2 generic 6s Brio and Orient, and then we have our 3 Dragoonity monsters, and pardon the pronunciation, 2 copies of Vajrayna and 1 copy of Gator. Vajrayna can equip Phalanx from the grave in order to allow synchro climbing into our level 8s, or use the Phalanx to buff its attacks. And Gator is a search for any of our level 4 lower Winged Beast or Dragons. The ever reliable level 7s, Black Rose and Ancient Fairy. Ancient Fairy of course gets the added benefit of abusing Ravine. Onto our level 8s, 2 copies of Stardust Dragon and 1 copy of Scrap. The reason I mentioned a flex spot earlier is because some of you don't have the friends to ask for this next one, Trident Dragon. The reprint is right around the corner, and just like it does today, it kills your wallet and your opponent. There are other ways to run Dragoonity, but Turbo tends to appeal to you more modern players. In our side, I would suggest things like Max C and Effect Veiler, and of course powerful trap cards like the Solemn Trio and Torrential Tribute if you feel like you need to slow down your opponent. Cards to look out for are Thunder King and Droll as they stop us in our track. And make no mistake, Droll is legal in the format, but no one plays it, so go off, King. Until next time, peace.